Hi, today I'm going to be talking about our spotlight on a book that both Sally Helgesen and Marshall Goldsmith have written. And Sally is the woman who wrote Be the Female Advantage, and she wrote that book in the 1990s, and she's written about four other books since then. And the other person was Marshall Goldsmith, who I have followed for a number of years. He was a professor at Dartmouth Tuck School of Business, and then he also has his PhD from UCLA's Anderson School of Management. And the name of the book is actually How Women Rise. And I thought it was really interesting, breaking the 12 habits that are holding you back from your next raise, promotion, or job. And there were a couple of things that when I read the book, it really resonated with me because they were things that I kind of knew, but the culmination of these 12 habits that we have, I have to say, I kind of hit all 12 of them. And that was also one of the turning points for me as I was looking at what's next in my life. So these 12 habits are the ones that hold you back from your next raise, promotion, or job. But I also think they're the ones that are holding you back, empowering you to be the best version of yourself. So if we briefly go through those 12, I'm actually going to focus on just a couple, not all 12 of them. But the first one is your reluctance to claim your achievements. And I do this on a regular basis where I kind of talk to women and ask them, what was your greatest achievements? And I ask them to do that over the decades of their life. So if it's someone that is in their 30s, they're going to go through that, what they did in their 20s and 30s, and then they're going to say, well, I didn't really accomplish a lot. And my question is, yes, you did. Take a look at all of the things that you accomplished, whether that was graduating college, whether that was your first job that was really a highlight in your life. And it really is looking at each one of those decades and identifying what are the things that really resonate for you as things you wanted to accomplish, but you don't really recognize them until you see them on a piece of paper listed. And I think the longer that we're around, longer our careers are, that's also an opportunity to say, okay, did this in my 20s, this in my 30s, this in my 40s, and look at where I am today. And I've really achieved a lot more than I would have anticipated had I said in my 20s, oh yeah, I want to do this, this, and this. So list those accomplishments out and be proud of them. Claim them. If you're putting them on your resume, make sure that you're putting the ones that are really impactful as someone's looking at you for the next role that you're applying for. So the next thing is expecting others to notice and reward you. And I think this is a fact when we don't really acknowledge what we've done and we're kind of expecting others to take us by the hand and reward us for some of the things that we've done. And I know for me, I've made some decisions taking jobs based on who the manager was, who I was going to be reporting to. And I made a couple of those decisions based on, I wanted to work with this particular executive to find out. I took the job, and 6 weeks later, the executive announced he was moving on to a different business. So for me, that was one of the wake up moments where I was just like, okay, I need to make a decision based on what are the opportunities that are in this role that I'm applying for, or do I want to take this opportunity knowing I may not be working with this person that I want to for a long period of time, and it may be, it's a stepping stone to what the next opportunity is. So I've made a couple of those decisions about roles that I was taking, and I really did kind of fall into working with the next executive, that person's successor, and it really was an absolutely awesome career opportunity for me. So let's take a look at number 3, which is overvaluing expertise. And I think sometimes we take a look at what we've done and we kind of, yes, we can overvalue it, and it's not seen in the same light as others see our expertise. But I think what I want to do here is, in the role that you're currently in, what are those skills and responsibilities that you've had? What results have you shown? And do you use those to the advantage of what how they will contribute to the next opportunity that you're going to be applying for? Or maybe it's not the next opportunity. Maybe it is in another area of your life that expertise is really helping you. And then the next, number 4, is building rather than leveraging relationships. So for me, I remember early on in my career that, it was stated, do not burn any bridges. And I think the longer I was in my career, the longer it was really important to me to maintain those relationships long after I had worked with a particular manager or worked with an executive team, because they were the ones that remembered, was I there to support them? Was I the one that said, nope, I can't do that, that's against policy? And it wasn't like I was deviating from policy, but it may have been that wasn't my responsibility anymore, but I could direct them to someone that could help them. So I think leveraging relationships and knowing how to move forward. And yes, sometimes it's being political, sometimes it's being diplomatic, and sometimes it's just knowing what relationships will help you to achieve the next opportunity that you're looking for. And I know that I've worked with some executives, and some of them it was all, what's in it for me? What's in it for me? And sometimes I had to take a step back and say, okay, I'm in this reporting relationship, and I want to be able to leverage the relationships that I have. I've reported to some CEOs that to this day, those were the most outstanding people that I reported to, and really helped me in my career in subsequent positions that I had moved to. So really depends upon if you are building relationships or leveraging those relationships. Number 5 is failing to enlist allies from day one. And I know that I've worked with a number of different senior level people, and you could always see the ones that were, building their allies early on in the process. And those are the ones that help you, that's your network, so that as you're going later on in your career, those are the people that are going to help you. They're also the same ones that are going to remember you at a later point in time to say, I recommend Karen in this situation. I recommend Susan in this other opportunity. And those were the ones time and time again that, those were the women that were being promoted. Those were the women that, were remembered for some of the accomplishments and results that they had as they were going and looking for what their next career opportunities were. So one of the other steps here in how women rise, some of those 12 habits, and we're at the halfway mark, putting your job before your career. And I think that's also one of the things that I think a lot of people look at, what's the next position that I want to take in my career? Am I looking at what I'm going to gain from that particular role? Or am I looking at the overall and how that will contribute to the portfolio that I have in my career? So I'm very familiar with when we had rolled out broadbanding, and broadbanding was a compensation structure. And the goal of that compensation structure was really to expand your portfolio of skills and responsibilities and results so that you actually broadened your skills rather than them being narrowed. And I know some people were not really happy about that structure, but from the standpoint, what we were doing was looking at having the ability to expand your skills when there weren't as many positions that were opening up. And also it was enabling your career path so that you were able to expand your skill set. The next step, the next habit that holds you back is one that I let go a long time ago, but it is one that I'm very familiar with, and that is the perfection trap. And perfectionism really is exhausting, but it's also, when you want everything in place and you kind of procrastinate in order to become the perfectionist, And it's one of those things where perfectionism doesn't really serve you, and it doesn't serve you because it kind of holds you hostage. And that was one of the things that I had noticed, in the technical field. A lot of people were saying, we can't go forward until, we can't go forward until. And it happened a lot also in the marketing area. And it's one of those things where perfectionism, yeah, it's great to have, everything in line and have all of the tactics aligned with your strategies. But sometimes good enough is time to move on. And that is one of the things that I really noticed in my career when I let go of the perfectionism and said, are we 80% there? Are we 75% there? Can I deal with not knowing that other 20 or 25% so that we can move forward? And a lot of times I just said we had to go with it. And going with it actually enabled us to move forward faster because we weren't being bogged down by some of the details that, yes, those details were important, but at the same time, we were able to move on because we weren't being held back because of a couple, details. The next step is, the next habit is disease to please. And I think you know as well as I do, sometimes we please, we kind of put ourselves in a position that we want to please, we don't want to say no, and when we get to a point in our careers when we're not able to, set our boundaries and say no, that's also one of the things that kind of holds us back. So everyone wants to, be accommodating. Being accommodating has a limitation to it. But I think when you turn around and say, the disease to please is one that it's not a good habit to have. And it's one that once you set your boundary, you push through it and you can say no at that point in time. So number 9 is minimizing, and it's about holding your space. And I know there are times and places where you kind of say, you push back. You push back because you don't want to be in a position where you're kind of holding everyone in place so that there's this, this group effort, but the group effort is kept to a minimal. The next step is actually too much. And having too much relates to, too much emotion, too many words, and too much disclosure. So I think it's a matter of, a habit that we all have is sometimes we want to talk through things. And as extroverts, we want to talk through, to justify why we're doing something. And it's kind of best to say, kind of take a step back and enough is enough. The other thing is sometimes showing too much emotion. And I know there have been times in my life where I kind of said, it was really painful. And the painful experience kind of impacted, my ability to really push through and say, okay, we just need to move forward rather than listening to all of, and kind of making it a more painful situation for other people as they wanted to explain where they were and what they wanted. And it's one thing to be compassionate. It's another thing to be stuck in, all of the emotions that are going on. And the other is, in disclosure. Sometimes we are willing to share way too much, and we just need to kind of take a step back and say, that's enough. Step number 11 is about ruminating or clinging to the past. And I know that there have been situations where, the pendulum is swinging and it's a matter of, new things are being introduced and you kind of ask yourself, wasn't that something we did like a couple of years ago? And sometimes there's this clinging to, well, it didn't work before and it's not going to work now. Well, we've kind of gone through some of those growing pains of going through experiences. And now we're at a point where the situation today and we're clinging to the past is different than the situation that was, 2 years ago, 4 years ago. And it's a matter of breaking free. And by breaking free, what we are able to do is expand our lives, expand that space so that we're able to enable new experiences and also embrace change that's going on in the organization. So, and finally, step number 12, which, breaking the 12 habits holding you back. It's letting your radar distract you, but it's also, you may be getting signals, whether they're subliminal or whether they are, direct messages or texts about things that are going on, things to be aware of. And I think sometimes we need to take a step back, reframe it, focus, have the clarity and the confidence in the decisions that we currently are facing, but also in the material that your own experiences, and in making decisions that are best for you. And this is all, on a career basis, but also your career impacts your personal life. And that's also part of the reason that I wrote the book, Let Go, Embrace Change, and Have Fun, because I noticed that there were things that I was holding on to. So similar to, the clinging to the past before you break free, or holding on to some of that perfectionism trap. There were times when it was just exhausting to hold on to. We need more information before we can go forward. And once I got to that point and said, enough is enough, we were able to really make strides. I was able to move to a place that was much easier in my life to say, I'm good with where I'm at. And it took a long time to get there, and it's having gone through a career where you have those steps. And when you're faced with, sometimes you just have to push through. Sometimes you just good enough is good enough, and we're going to go. And it wasn't like I was making decisions that would be harmful to others or were putting others in jeopardy. It was just a matter of making a decision that was best for the organization, best for me. And sometimes what was best for the organization may not have been in my best interest. And it was a matter of saying, okay, we need to push through this. And in so doing, I was also making a decision about where I wanted to be personally in my life. So I think this particular book, How Women Rise, is really an opportunity for you to embrace where you are, if you want to push through, if you notice the habits that are kind of holding you back, and then at the same time, being comfortable in making changes so that you know what works for you. No one else can tell you what's going to work. I mean, I can tell you till the cows come home, make recommendations or, give advice or give options, whatever. But you're the one that ultimately has to make that decision. And what I have noticed is when I have a reflection, and the reflection is, am I ready to make changes? Am I ready to move forward? Am I holding on to procrastinating too much? It's time to say, I'm ready, just push through, because I see the light, and the light is telling me it's time to stop being in this dark place of I'm afraid to make a step forward. And when I am able to move forward, see the light, I'm more confident in who I am. And as a result of being confident, I'm also at a point where, what have you got to lose? Life is so short. And there are some huge benefits to kind of like letting go, being free. The boundaries, yes, you can set boundaries to keep people away. Sometimes it's, pushing through your own boundaries, and your own boundaries are allowing you to see how awesome you are, how intelligent, how much you have to contribute. And with that, I'm going to say, I want you to put together a list of the types of things that you feel are holding you back, and the habits that you have that would, if you're to change habits, the ones that'll kind of help you get to the next place. If you're looking for your next role in your career, if you're looking to step aside and you want to do something different, these are all the types of considerations and reflections that you will have about where you are in your life, how you see yourself, how you value yourself, and what you love about you. Because the relationship that you have with you is the most important, and that's what's going to propel you to be successful in whatever you choose to do in the future. So thanks so much for listening. This spotlight interview was a little bit different. Obviously, I'm interviewing myself, but I'm giving you some feedback. And I've got interviews that are coming up in the next couple of weeks that I think you're really going to enjoy. So thanks so much and have a great day.